heroes in that way, always.
And it looks like we're officially live. Welcome to another episode of the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. Today we have our special guest, Tony Ferraro. He's an experienced entrepreneur, CEO, and business and life strategist. Tony works with success-driven people, aligning their life and business with their dreams through strategic thinking and doing. So please stay tuned, and we'll see you on the inside.
And we're back. Welcome to Uncensored Entrepreneurs. Whoa, we got a guest today.
I am so excited to host Mr. Tony Ferraro with us today. I don't know if my internet is cutting in and out or if I'm like choppy, so you'll just have to let me know. But I met Tony a few years back. He was doing a project with Jordan Adler. He is also, on top of being an experienced entrepreneur and buying and selling businesses and being a CEO and doing all these amazing things in the world. He was also a publisher. He got into the publishing world. And I met him when he was doing a book series called Momentum Makers. And it was kind of like chicken soup for the soul for network marketers. And it talked about team building and leadership. But Tony is a coach and a trainer for really high impact people, for people that are here to make a difference in the world. He has done things from big business to heading up church organizations and nonprofits. And his story is really interesting, how entrepreneurship kind of evolves. And I think that we all think it's going to be one way and it turns out another. And the opportunity for us is endless. And so it's just a matter of walking through different doors. So Tony, I would love to introduce you and thank you for being here today. And I would love to give you the floor and allow you to talk a little bit about yourself and share your story with people and how all of this amazingness came to be.
Yeah, it's really funny. I as someone who loves to focus on, the passions, visions, and dreams of other people, I'm not real great about talking about myself. I've been an entrepreneur. I've been entrepreneurial my entire life, since I was a kid, but I really turned the corner, and the sort of that benchmark moment in my life happened in did you guys lose audio?
No, we're still here.
We hear you.
Yeah, happened in about, okay, I thought you lost audio. I lost you. Happened in about 2000, and I had failed at a business, and it was the first time in my life that I said, I failed. And when I said I failed, the person I was talking to said, how does that feel? And I said, it actually feels pretty good. And she, definitely not the answer she was expecting. She said, what do you mean it feels good? I said, I think I finally figured out what I am. Right? I'm an entrepreneur, and I'd rather spend the rest of my life failing at my things than working on other people's things. And that was really that benchmark sort of turning point moment when I realized this is what I'm going to set out to do. And so, I had a couple more failures between there and success. What people don't understand is that entrepreneurial journey, it's iterative. For very few people is it automatic success. It's iterative change until you kind of figure it out. And it just takes time. And so from there, we started a business, me and a couple other guys in our house in 2003, eventually built it. It was a software company, merged into another company in 2009, sold that company in 2011. And then kind of everything was changed after that in terms of my entrepreneurial journey. But that's where the passion has been. And then following the exit is when I really got passionate about helping other people, right? I started kind of pouring into other, executives and leaders around the world and coaching them using a proprietary practice on how to align their life and their business with their dreams, because they really do need to dovetail if you're going to be successful at it. And that's what I spent the last really 10 years doing. And I absolutely love it.
Isn't that so interesting, you guys? And like here, I'm going to let, you guys get into this, but one of the things that just like really hit home for me is that most entrepreneurs don't have an exit strategy, and you have to work your butt off until you make the money that you need to make to be able to do what you love every single day. And most people don't get over that hump of like doing the grind and going through all the challenges and pushing through to create that exit strategy. So now you just get to operate in your wheelhouse and zone of genius and do what you love and outsource the rest. I love that story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact, Tony, you had mentioned that aligning, their life and business with their dreams. That is absolutely huge, right? Because traditionally, coming from like a traditional business consulting background, and it looks like you've had that same kind of journey, up until now, most people just fundamentally are always looking for just the operational side and the sales aspect of their business, when in many cases they're not reaching those goals because there isn't alignment between that business model and their personal life and dreams. So I love that.
Yeah, thank you for that. The way I look at it, in our life, we've got various domains. We've got our personal life, our financial life, our vocational life, our family life, our spiritual life, our, the physical environment we live in. And oftentimes what ends up happening is entrepreneurs become singularly focused on that vocational piece. And it's that approach to life that creates burnout, failed marriages, failed businesses and everything else. Is by not understanding, you really got to keep all of this together. And the way I look at it is, and this is one thing you'll hear from me over and over and over and over, is everything starts with a dream. You don't get up and get a cup of coffee in the morning without having an idea for a cup of coffee. So if everything starts with a dream, well, then you really need a dream for your whole life. Part of that dream is your vocational entrepreneurial journey. But the rest of that dream is everything else I talked about a moment ago, right? And if you don't understand how those fit together, that's where the balance occurs. It's not balancing your time and your effort between your domains. It's making sure you've got proper perspective on how they fit together and the importance of all of them in the bigger picture, and not losing sight of all those other domains because you get sucked into that entrepreneurial journey, which happens 99 times out of 100 for people.
Oh,
wow. So many entrepreneurs right now are struggling. They're struggling with staying consistent, struggling with the economy changing. What would you tell an entrepreneur right now that's on the verge of giving up?
Well, first of all, it's important to understand what an entrepreneur is and what kind of makes you one. And I think that's the first piece of that. A lot of people think because they have a clever idea that can sell a lot, that makes them an entrepreneur. That does not make you an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs know how to solve problems. And what it means to solve problems is to actually deliver a solution on the other side of your idea. And it's a solution that the market is ready for and wants and is repeatable and scalable, right? So that's what actually turns you into an entrepreneur as opposed to an opportunist. And so that's the first thing, is there's a lot of people that are pursuing what they think is an entrepreneurial journey, but it's really an opportunistic journey. And that's where a lot of your frustration hits. Now, the reason I say that, in order to answer your question, is this: it all comes back to the dream. The thing that pushes you through the wall. I've got a thing that I take small business owners called the 22 laws of business. One of those laws is exactly that. How do you get through the cloud, right? How do you get through what's going on in your environment and all that? And the simple answer is this: revisit the dream, right? The level to which you're passionate about the dream is what's going to provide that energy and that drive and that determination that's going to get you up every single day, no matter what, and push you through all of that, all of the things that are happening externally. Now, when that comes to being the difference between being an opportunist versus an entrepreneur, the opportunist, remember, if you're an opportunist, your motivation was, hey, I think this will work and I'll sell a lot. So when you don't sell a lot, you have a really thin barrier between you and stopping. When you're a problem solver, you see a world that doesn't exist yet, and it's better than the one we live in, and you're not going to stop at anything until you get to that. And so revisiting that dream, understanding that dream is what pushes you through the moments you're talking about. And this is why personally, when I talk with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, I have a tendency to tell them, look, non-disclosure agreements really aren't that effective, because if you tell somebody and you give them your idea, they didn't have that genesis moment that they got emotionally attached to. Mm-hmm. They were an opportunist. They may be able to go make something out of it, temporarily, but they can't make a real solution for the long term with it. And that's the same for you internally. If you're motivated by opportunity, you're probably not going to succeed. If you're motivated by that entrepreneurial, end result, yes, you're gonna fight like hell to make it happen.
I love that.
Wow. Boom.
I love that. And that's
our episode today on Uncensored.
Yeah, I was gonna say that concludes our show right there. No, I absolutely love that. There's when you mentioned before, right at the very beginning of that, because that was all just beautiful, Tony, by the way. When you had mentioned about, people keeping things separate when really they should all be intertwined. I always like to use that analogy because I love cooking, right? And you think of each little individual ingredient that you're preparing for this ultimate meal, when really the focus should be, the ultimate meal. You need to do these little things, right? But we get so hung up on one little stage, or we try to keep the buckets separated. People talk about buckets all the time. My faith is a bucket, my business is a bucket, when really they all intertwine. And when you can do that, when you can put them all together, all these ingredients into one beautiful recipe, then that's when you find harmony and everything that you've been talking about as far as that alignment goes. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, and I fully agree. And that's one of the things, like when I work with individuals as opposed to teams, although we do a dream board with teams too, but when I do a dream board with an individual, that's one of the things I focus on is, look, the dream's got to be complete. It can't just be a boat, and it can't just be a destination, and it can't just be a bank account. It's got to include the rest of you. You're a bucket of many parts, right? And they've all got to go together. So, really, again, in those 22 laws I talked about, one of them is just really understanding yourself. What are you made of? And if you're about to embark on an entrepreneurial journey, and you sit down and you put the problem up there, and you put your solution up there, and you ask the question, how is this going to change people's lives? Why are their lives going to be better? If you can't say yes to the following question, you shouldn't be doing it. So what's the question? Is it worth your life?
Yeah.
Wow. Is it worth your life to do this? Because here's the deal. The most valuable asset you have is your time. You're never getting that back again. You're going to lay in a bed one day staring at a ceiling, getting ready to die, and it sure as hell had better been worth it. And so the truth is, if you're sitting back as an entrepreneur and you're saying, I've got an idea for some new widget, and that widget's not worth your life, then don't start.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that, Tony. And I was going to ask you too, going back to that alignment piece with the dream that we all would have. And everybody's dream obviously is a bit different. But what I see for myself and a lot of other entrepreneurs is that we're trying to make this dream happen, and we are staying on that grind and that hustle bus. And I know you said, we have to be focused on all those areas. So how are we able to distinguish, moving, aligning all those three pieces that you mentioned and still, going towards the dream that we have without killing ourselves, or like you said just a moment ago, was it worth it?
Yeah, it's really good. And I'll tell you, the simple answer to that is this. And actually, there's 6 different domains. So there's 6, right? And typically, if somebody asks you, what's the dream for your life, you tend to have a single answer for that. And it's typically stuff oriented. The trick to getting to real life satisfaction and fulfillment, because you'll never get to, quote, balance. The trick to getting to fulfillment is you need a dream for your family life. You need a dream for your vocational life. You need a dream for your financial disposition, your spiritual life, the area you live in, and your personal life, which is your physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual component. You need a dream for each one of those, and then you ask the question, how does that roll into a master? Now, once you've got that, that becomes really your template. Okay, this is my template. Now I'm asking the question, what I'm about to embark on or what I'm about to do, how is it going to impact that? Because if what I'm about to do doesn't get to that, then I shouldn't be doing it. And one of the other things I kind of go through, I won't go through all 6 right now, but I've got the 6 stages of strategy. The first 3 are strategic doing, the second 3 are strategic the first 3 are strategic thinking, the second 3 are strategic doing. The first part of strategic doing is discipline, knowing your absolute yes to the exclusion of everything else you do. And so when you say that this is my absolute yes, and now I want to do this, I could do this, I might do this, or this is an idea, you've got to ask it and test it. How is it going to impact this ecosystem over here? If it's going to be a negative impact and take this ecosystem from a green to a red, it's a no for me. It doesn't matter how opportunistic it is. It's a no because it's disrupting the most important thing that I have, which is my whole life plan.
I love that.
Ooh, that is good. Woo.
It's important to have that holistic view, right? That holistic view, because money isn't everything. I mean, money makes life easier. It provides you options. But if your dream is to have children and have the freedom to be at home with them, like realize that there are sacrifices that come with building business. And, you know, sometimes you can't be totally present with your kids in those moments. And, you know, Tony and I had a conversation about this previously, you know, about the difference between how men think about business and how women think about business. And as nurturers, we come in and often, you know, we have a really hard time. You have that, you know, what they call mom guilt, where you're guilty when you're not working, that you should be working, and you're guilty because when you're with your kids, and then when you're working, you're guilty that you're not with your kids. And so this holistic view of what success actually means is so powerful, because it's not always, and you're going to go through different seasons and different chapters in your business, right? It doesn't have to be all in all the time. Especially when you've got young kids. But as you know, life evolves and different opportunities come in. I love, Tony, that you made that distinction between what you say yes to and what you say no to. I think that's the difference between really uber successful entrepreneurs, is that really successful people just say no to a lot more, and they say no to everything that doesn't align with where they're going and what they want on a holistic level. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, because I think so often it's ignored, and it's just like people just focus on the goal of making money, and that is such an empty goal. Once you have money, you realize, like, okay, great, I have money, but now I still have these problems, or I still don't see my family, or I still don't, you know, live the life that I actually want to live. And I'm an entrepreneur, great, now it all falls on me, you know.
Yeah.
Somebody
Yeah.
said,
So if I could speak to that, I'm sorry, real quick. One quick thought on that. The problem is people have the wrong understanding of the role of money in the whole equation. They think that money is the answer, that money is that end result. It is the dream. And that's the wrong approach. The purpose of money is to fund the dream. The purpose of money is to fund the dream. It's how we get it done, right? So that makes you think about it differently. You've got 2 really important assets. Well, really, let's call it 3 important assets. You've got money, you've got time, and you've got relationships. And those 3 assets, money, time, and relationships, are what you're supposed to be using, like, you know, pieces on a chessboard, in order to produce the outcome that is your life plan. And that's where people make the mistake. They feel like I'm running and running and running in order to produce the money, and the money is the dream. And that's why so many people, when they get the money, either A, it's completely empty, right? Because it's empty. It's just money. It's a tool, right? Or B, they lose it because they had no plan for management, right? They didn't understand it was a tool. And that's why people end up there. So the point is the wrong, if we can flip our thinking to realize that money is a pathway to an outcome, and that outcome is the life plan. Now we're not asking the question, what do I dream about money? We're asking the question, what do I dream about life, and how do I get the money to make that happen? Totally different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Boy, every single person that's either listening live or will be listening on any other channel in replay, that is probably the most important clip right there. Just the pure fact, because most people don't, you know, they're already thinking, they watch a YouTube video, a TikTok video on, you know, how wealthy they can become when there is no ceiling, and they can become their own boss, an entrepreneur. And that journey, as we all know, we've all experienced, is a very, very hard journey. And I love that you basically summarized all that as, is it worth your life? Because you will go through many different trials, mindset, heart set, soul set, all those things on that journey. Is it worth your time? Is it worth relationships? Is it worth money? But the interesting thing is everyone focuses just on the dollar. And really, at the end of the day, you're right. That is just a vehicle to fund the ultimate goal, your dream, whatever it may be, right? The impact that you're having in serving, the world and your family and everyone else. I love that. That's that's so perfect. The other thing I wanted to just kind of bounce back to the group, Christina, you mentioned the word nurture, and I just put a little note down because I didn't want to overlook the fact, you know, many times entrepreneurs, because we serve in such a big way, many of us have a component of nurturing, right? In whatever that may be. And not only with family, I have even found in my own business and life that many times on this journey, I'm a nurturer to those that I am serving, right? My clients, the community, people that I collaborate with. And that can become overwhelming too when you continue to overserve and then you find, you know what, I'm losing time, I'm losing, traceability. My goals seem to be out of alignment, as we talked about earlier. So what are your thoughts around that, Tony, just in general, throughout your successful journey? How do you balance out the effort in serving, right, versus something that's monetized and continuing to focus on that path?
Well, again, it all comes back to really understanding those domains I talked about now, and your time management. Again, time is the most valuable asset you've got. You'll never get more of it. You can't get it back once it's spent. So spend it wisely, right? So if you figure every person has 12 hours a day to use towards something, and you've got other 12 hours to sleep and take a bath and whatever else. So you got 12 hours every single day.
Wait, Tony,
you got 7 days a week.
Day? Like we
shower,
we have to shower every day.
Yeah, exactly. You've got 7 days a week, and you've got 4.3 weeks per month. So you've got 364 investable hours in your month. 364.
Wow.
So if we go back to what I said, I know that's a perspective change right there by itself, right? I've got 364 investable hours every single month. How am I? That's a tool. That's a resource. How am I going to use it, right? So the question is now, you've got 6 domains that I talked about: personal domain, physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual health. You've got your vocational domain, how you produce and contribute to the world. You've got your family domain, which changes over the course of time. You've got your financial domain, which resources and creates all this. You've got your community, and then you've got your physical community. You've got these 6 domains that you're going to take those 364 hours and split it into those groups. Now, remember, you've got an outcome that's called your life plan or your dream that you're trying to get to. Mm-hmm. So how do you budget those hours to produce that outcome, given that you only have 364 of them? It's simple math, right? And sitting down and figuring out percentages. This percent of my time is going to be invested in my entrepreneurial journey. But this percent of my time is going to be invested in my wife or my husband or whatever to make sure that I still got that at the end, right? And this percent of my time is going to be invested in that giving proportion, right, that you talked about. It's whatever your dream is, whether it's philanthropic work, whether it's service-based in the community, whatever it is, you've got to just work through the budget of that and get your goals and basically build a dashboard so that you can see, are you hitting those things or are you not? And then make your adjustments accordingly.
So true. And, unfortunately, many people just don't even have, it's one of the things that we see as coaches when we're first working with someone. Many don't even have that dashboard that you mentioned, right? That they ultimately have this dream, this idea, this vision. They have potentially small little vehicles that they've been able to adopt to get them to that destination, right? They're making some money along the way, but it's having that dashboard, as you just stated. And I love that. And also just being really in tune with the time that you allocate to each one of those things. Because, at the end of the day, it is really hard. Like I said, as a nurturer, my ultimate goal would be just to serve the world, right? And we know in order to do that, that takes a great deal of wealth. It takes time. It takes collaboration and leverage and all types of other things in order to make something like that happen.
Yeah, and I'll say, part of it is about getting real with yourself again. There's sort of a continuum, if you will, between the highly sort of tactical thinker and the highly visionary thinker. And
Yeah.
where you are on that spectrum, the further to the visionary you become, the harder it is to be disciplined. And the harder it is to live by systems, the more contrived things like dashboards feel, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where it's very, very difficult. Now, the truth is, your highest level visionaries that can figure those components out, your people, like Elon Musk and Walt Disney, some of these guys, and Steve Jobs, that can figure out the discipline to move it forward, those guys are really successful. Unfortunately, 99.99999% of visionaries struggle with that, and they can't do it. And that's why the failure rate is so high, because it's typically those high visionaries that step into the entrepreneurial space because they can also tolerate high risk and high change, right? And that's where failure happens. And so really getting to the point that you just talked about, understanding that you really do need a dashboard. You need that accountability. The more of a visionary you are, the more external accountability you need, because there's none inside. The way I like to describe myself on that visionary spectrum is there's no box. Like, there is no box. A box is a limit, right? It's a barrier. Like, why would there ever be a box? That's how my brain works. But there's the part of me that the conscious that says, okay, I can't give into that. Yeah. Right? I can't give into that. I can't live over here all day, because that's just an amorphous sort of world without discipline, and it lacks progress. And so that dashboard component and external accountability, the higher visionary you are, the more important those two pieces are.
So true. By the way, Christina, I know you said don't mind me. I'm just sitting here taking notes. Right? I don't even know how you're able to write this fast, because there's so much content.
What?
Yeah, there's so much awesome content just packed in here, which is why I'm so glad we're capturing it in both video and audio.
Yes.
And by the way, just a quick little kind of housekeeping note. Sometimes, StreamYard does lag depending on how many different things we have going. When it does, the audio still streams. So just to kind of be conscious of that. We're still capturing all this wonderful content along the way. And so based on that, Tina had said again, what are the different buckets? Since you're taking notes, Christina, but when, you're giving away a lot here, Tony. And I think in the very beginning, I remember you saying, I'm not going to necessarily get into all of them. And I think we're asking so many questions. Leave it
to us to bring it all out.
I'm happy to run through them again. Yeah, and this is so basically there's 6. You've got your personal domain, which is your physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual health. Mm-hmm. Then you have your family domain, which obviously changes over the course of life, right? Your family dynamic changes. Then you've got your vocational domain. Now, the way I describe vocation is how you contribute to the world, right? Because some people are, they're philanthropists. That's all they do, and they're able to do that. It's still a vocation, right? So how you contribute to the world. Then you have your financial domain, which is how you fund everything. And the reason I separate that out, and a lot of life coaches don't necessarily separate that out, but it gets forgotten, and it's so important. It's the infrastructure, right? By and large. And then you have your spiritual community or church, or however you want to characterize that. Mm-hmm. I characterize it as church, but nonetheless, you can do that however you like. And then you've got the physical environment that you live in, your physical community or geography. And 5 of those, I added the financial domain. 5 of those actually came from some training that I did under Tom Patterson's program 10, 15 years ago, if you're familiar with him. But so he's got the 5. I added the 6 after doing a lot of working with executives and figuring out that financial domain was really important and often forgotten. So I added that one. But nonetheless, it's about really coming up with a dream for each one of those components and then tying that together in sort of a meta narrative that is the story of the life that you want to have. And then this is the critical part, what does that look like? So often when we talk about dream making and dream planning or life, sort of planning, we get focused on, again, the tangible stuff of it looks like an RV. It looks like a trip to Italy. It looks like whatever. But what does it look like for your spiritual health to be really in a great place? right? How would you describe that graphically? How would you describe graphically what a happy workplace looks like for you vocationally, right? How would you what words would you put around the physical community that you live in that would help somebody else understand what your dream is for where you live, right? Those pieces are just as important. So you've really got to fill out the whole picture so that nothing gets left. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're like the guy that goes to the gym and only does biceps, right? That's what ends up happening.
That's a good
It has the chicken legs.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah,
that's such a good analogy.
Yeah, that has a little chicken legs.
So Tony, you mentioned this dashboard and you talk about the check boxes that we can use. I mean, it sounds like a lot of different areas of my life that I now need to manage or pay attention to. So how do you guide entrepreneurs in making sure that they're able to tap into each one of those? Because each of those buckets also had a lot of elements that you just mentioned.
Yeah, they do. And so, I don't want to be salesy, but I've got a 2-day process that I take people through. Over the course, we go all the way from the time you were born until, what your plans are after you're dead and gone, right? What's that whole journey and what's the outcome? And out of that, we build a 3-panel dashboard that really sums it all up. And we create a metric system that helps you really know day to day, how are you doing against that red, yellow, green? Are you moving towards health or away from health? And then, of course, you've got the outcome of an actual, now let's put a 6-month, 1-year plan together. These are the things you need to go do in each one of these areas. And again, that separation of the buckets is what causes so much problem for people, right? Mm-hmm. If everybody's got a to-do list for their, a set of goals and to-dos for their vocation. Everybody successful has that. Some people have a similar thing in their marriage or at home. Very few people, or maybe they have it for their finances, but few people have that for their family. Few people have that for their spiritual life, right? We don't do the same thing. So in that process, we really do that, and we create the practice and habit of thinking that way. And then the nice thing is we also build a filter. And this is the most important piece, right? Is like, okay, I always tell people when I go through this process, the whole 2 days we just spent was to really get to the filter. That's what this is really all about. And in that filter, we've got about 9 different metrics that we're looking at. Your life experience, your hopes, your skills, what your dreams and your outcomes are, and basically your financial goals. Now that we have this filter, we're going to look at, what do you want to do? Well, I want to go start this company. Okay, how is it going to take advantage of your life experience? Do you have the experience to do this? A lot of people have a lot of really great ideas, but they have no experience, network, or relationship to pull that off. You're starting with the cards against you, right? Mm-hmm. How is it going to impact your core values? Is it going to promote them, or is it going to detract for them? If you have as one of your highest core values family, and the entrepreneurial journey you're about to go on is going to require 80 to 90% travel for the first 3 years, that's probably not in alignment. That's right. You're going to get divorced, or you're going to be depressed. Right? So let's look at your core values. So many people say, I have core values, but they don't operationalize them in their decision making, right? They don't make decisions based on their values. And so all their values get compromised, and they don't know why they're miserable. It's because all your values are compromised, right? So we check what you're embarking on against that. And then we look at your hopes and your dreams. What's the propensity that what you want to do is going to make that happen? And what's the probability of success on that? Because you're going to invest your most valuable asset, your time, in trying to pull that off. So, there's more. I won't go through it all, but we create a filter that then is a snapshot filter. You can put it in a wallet and go, okay, I'm thinking about doing this. What's it do here? What's it do here? What's it do here? What's it do here? It sounds complicated, but it gets very simple.
Wow. And the good news is, right, so all you visionaries that are listening in, you can reach Tony at www.tonyferraro. That's FERRARO.com. And he can help you with this dashboard, right? Because we know the visionaries,
100%.
They really have no place in sitting there creating the dashboard for themselves. And you'd even have alluded to that earlier, Tony. You said you talked about Jobs, you talked about Elon Musk, and many other very smart individuals that have built huge organizations, legacies. But they've always hired people to do some of these things, right? So when you do find a gap, it doesn't mean you're out of business. When you find a gap, it's being smart enough to understand that you could hire other people to actually help you with those gaps and to be able to leverage the outcome, right?
100%. I mean, that's Maxwell's law of the lid, right? You're not going to be the best at everything.
Yes.
You don't need to be. You just need to know how to hire the right best.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that we're talking about
Yeah.
this, because I think so many entrepreneurs forget about the lifestyle that they live. And I'm such a huge advocate of making money around the life that you truly want to live, the location, what you want to do on a daily basis, and sometimes we have to be flexible about what we thought that dream was, and coming to a place where we evolve when we find these challenges, or we, like Tony said, we're problem solvers. That's what we do. We continually problem solve throughout different economies, throughout different eras. And when we see a problem in the economy that we can solve, then we just reinvent ourselves and adjust course. And so many people think it's just like a one-time game, it's a one-time thing. And we always use that example of Netflix versus Blockbuster, but it's true that we're constantly evolving. And if you can be somebody that can think ahead and solve problems for the future right now, you'll be very, very successful in what you do, but you have to be adaptable. And I say this all the time, that Darwin said that it's not the strongest or the most intelligent that survives. It's the species that adapts the fastest to its current circumstance. And if we take that on as entrepreneurs and we're constantly evolving, then we're able to create sustainable business. And that's where people get frustrated, is that they work so hard to create this one thing, and then that one thing peters out, and they're like, oh, well, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And they take it personally, as opposed to, hey, what's next for me? What's in store? Because Tony, we were talking about that, earlier, in that you have evolved so much in your different roles and taken on different things, and all of the different failures that you've gone through have actually led you down the line to where you are now.
100%. It's funny. I'll do a little, transparency here. By the time I was 35, I had 50 different jobs, starting from the time I was a kid, 50. And there was a tipping point where it went from really bad to really good, right? There's a point where it went from liability to asset. And when it became an asset was when this started working with all the experience that I had and realized, wait a minute, I can talk to anybody. And I understand the world they live in really quickly. I can break down a business model. I got exposed to so many different business models and financial models and, sales models and marketing models and so forth. I mean, there was so much experience in those 50 jobs that it really became a tremendous asset. And that's what causes that multidimensional component. But that's also, a little selfless plug. That's what makes me a really great coach and trainer, right? Because I can connect with everybody like that. I've had clients that former CEO of Family Restaurant Group, 25,000 employees, owned everything from Jack in the Box to Charlie Brown's, El Torito, wow. And I've also had, single entrepreneur guy, solopreneur guy with the window business, and everything in between. And I've worked with churches all over the world. And I mean, it's like that vast experience just really, truly becomes an asset at some point.
Yes, absolutely. It does. I talk a lot. I mean, everyone knows they're probably sick of me saying or hearing me talk about personal branding all the time, right? But every single one of those experiences weaves into that, into your personal brand and who you are today, and the outcome that you're able to serve others with. And likewise, my resume is right there with you, Tony. And I laugh sometimes because my wife, she still works in corporate America, and everything's very structured. It's black and white, especially in her department, the financial, right? The finance department. And she interviews a lot of people. And so when her and I have these discussions about interviewing people and resumes, et cetera, I'm like, I wouldn't even want to put my resume together nowadays. It's crazy if I was, to put that on paper.
I've done this.
It scares me even. But you're absolutely right. It can be a weakness as well if you're not able to tap into those and to really create alignment with each one of those pieces to draw out of them all, right? So, absolutely.
It's funny. My wife used to be the VP of HR for Billabong, the clothing company. So I've got the same household. And I took the disc one day. You guys might be familiar with the disc. And my results literally said, "Do not hire." Don't touch this guy.
That's
funny.
hilarious.
That is so true. That's
Yeah.
35 jobs.
And I said,
No, do not
you're
hire.
right. Yeah, don't hire this person.
absolutely.
Awesome.
I love it.
This
Wow,
is
what
this
great
is
Yeah.
really good stuff.
information in this power-packed hour.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
no, really good stuff. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tony. Go ahead. Let's keep.
You got the
keep
floor,
rolling.
man.
It's
Yeah.
all you, baby.
What's this?
Yeah, the thing is, this is, I guess I'll go through those 6 steps now. I wasn't going to, but I will. The 6
All
steps
right,
of strategy.
Steve.
And
Yeah, I knew we could get it out of it. There we go. All right.
This is what
I'm doing
Robert
it for a
really
reason.
wanted. This
So,
is the end result.
So one of the things, one of the core things that I really teach, and I'm really, 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 really passionate about is that there's really 2 components to strategy. And most of the time we think of strategy as, quote, planning for tomorrow today. Strategy gets limited to the planning component, right? And I think that there's more to it than that. So I break strategy really into 2 groups. There's strategic thinking and then there's strategic doing. And the strategic thinking part involves, first of all, like I said, everything starts with the dream. So the first part of strategy is the dream. You've got to have what I call your strategic framework in place, the chassis, if you will. That's your vision, that's your mission, and that's your core values, right? You need to understand, where you're headed, how you plan to get there, and the character you're going to have along the way, because those are the guiding principles, right? So that's the first step of strategic thinking, is really that dream component. The second piece is what I call direction, which asks the question, where am I in relationship to the dream? This is so important for young entrepreneurs, and this is where so many people fail. They don't take the time to stop and look backwards first. How did I get here? What are the tools, the assets, the life experience, and so forth I have? If this is my dream, am I properly prepared to get there? Am I the right person for this? And that's where failure happens. And do I have the right resources for that? Where am I in relationship to where I want to end up? That's the direction component, the second part of strategic thinking. The third part is the discernment piece. That's the plan, right? What do I need to do to actually get from where I am to where I want to go? Now, most of the time when organizations, businesses, or individuals do strategic planning, that's where they stop. They stop with the dream, the direction, and the discernment. And the problem is that didn't do anything. That was a great idea session. You had some fun with a blue sky moment, but you feel really good. But where do you go from here, right? And that gets into that second half, which is the strategic doing piece. The first piece being discipline that I talked about, knowing your absolute yes to the exclusion of everything else. The second component, or number 5 in the list, is drive, right? 2 things have to happen for a car to move. You got to have gas in the tank, and it's got to be engaged. You've got to answer that for yourself as a business leader. How are you going to stay engaged with your idea? This gets back to what Tina had asked me earlier. How are you going to stay on the path? How are you going to put fuel in your tank when there isn't any fuel left, right? What are you going to do to keep that full? And then you get into the last part, which is delivery. And delivery is, telling people broadly and regularly how you're doing at accomplishing your goals. Celebrate those wins. And there's a big reason for this. A lot of people are very shy. We start out on an entrepreneurial journey often with, some kind of imposter syndrome because we haven't proven it out yet. So we don't even tell people when we're winning along the way because we haven't gotten to the end result and we're not fully convinced inside of our heart that anybody cares what we're doing. And so we don't tell anybody. So we're not celebrating those wins. Guess what? Those wins are fuel for your own fire. But more important than that, when you've got 6 steps to get to the end, and you tell people you're on point 4, and you say, hey, I did this, and I'm so excited about where I'm at. I'm just telling you, they're all going to ask you the same question. What's next? Right? Yeah. So you're building in self-accountability when you tell people how you're doing on the journey. You're moving yourself forward by involving your community, right? So here's why I brought that up in all of this. That whole exercise, right? All those different parts of strategy, if you will, if you can get focused every single day on asking yourself, what is my dream? Where am I in relationship to it? What's my plan for the next step? what am I being distracted by anything? How do I stay on course? You know, how am I going to put fuel in my tank today? Because I don't have any. I'm waking up. I'm feeling the doubt. I'm feeling what everybody's telling me around me. Okay, I had a small win today. Doesn't matter how small it is. I'm going to pick up the phone and call somebody, so I'm encouraged. You will be successful.
Wow, that is so true. I'm so glad you brought that up. We talk about this all the time. That many people, they keep this initial plan, like you said, a secret. And if they don't reach the ultimate goal in that plan, that's typically when you see that 97% quit before they finally even reach the finish line. When really, if they're celebrating those small wins along the way and they have accountability partners and collaborators that cheer them on, it just continues to compel them and pushes them past that 2 to 3 year mark where most people fall short and quit. I love that.
What an incredible conversation today, honestly. Tony, we're so lucky to have you and have this conversation. I think that you've brought a lot of steps that are actionable for people that they can reflect on and really start to move forward in their business in a more conscious and intentional way. I think that's so powerful. And I appreciate you sharing your gifts and your talents and your experience of those 50 jobs before 35 with us today.
Absolutely. And again, for those that are just listening in and not watching video, you can connect and learn more from Tony at www.tonyferraro. That's FERRARO.com. And then you can find out, get a little bit more in depth with those 6 steps and also learn a little bit more about creating a dashboard, right? So that you have these metrics to govern your life and business by. And I love that you're intertwining the two so often, right? Entrepreneurs are focused 100% on business and money, and they forget to tell you about all the journey, the other aspects that really matter at the end of the day. That's, your spiritual, the spiritual hardships, the hardship on family. And that's why here on the Uncensored Entrepreneurs, right, we really talk about some of these things, the things that you don't see per se across social media. So really appreciate everything that you've given us today, Tony.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, gosh, I appreciate being here.
Likewise. And so again, thank each and every one of you. We'll have you on again, Tony, because we've only scratched the surface. We could probably go on. We should be recording for the next 3 or 5, maybe 5 hours with you. And then create this into
he just wants to get more information out of you, Tony.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, on some of our upcoming plans this year to have some masterminds and mini boot camps, you are absolutely going to be invited. So we appreciate that.
Most definitely.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I would love to do that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks,
Thank
Tony.
you all. Now, we'll see you again next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Uncensored Entrepreneurs. Have a nice day, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.